Hi, my name's Sharon Wallishan, and I'm a senior Power BI consultant with Omnidata. And very often I get asked to help enterprise clients set up or repair their Power BI tenants. And one of the first things that comes up in those discussions is how we establish what's called source control. And source control, I had to go to the internet for this definition, but it's a good one. Source control is the practice of tracking and managing the changes to your code. And in this case, the code that we're talking about is your Power BI desktop files. The source code allows you to track those changes, to see a revision history, and when necessary, to revert to an old version. That's what I'm going to show you today is a really easy way to do that using tools that you're familiar with. Now, I'm a pretty accomplished cook, and some of my favorite recipes are the ones that use things that I already have in my kitchen that I already know how to use. And that's what we're going to focus on today is things you already have that you already know how to use. So the tools you're going to need today are going to be Power BI Desktop on your computer, OneDrive, or a Teams SharePoint library, or a SharePoint library, one of those three, because they all pretty much work the same. You're going to need OneDrive installed on your computer. There's a link below the video. And you're also going to need access to a Power BI workspace where you can publish. So that would be either admin, contributor, or member access to a workspace. We're going to set this up in two sections. The first section is going to sync from your local computer up to SharePoint, OneDrive, or Teams. And I'll show you a little bit about all three. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to navigate to, you're going to open office.com, which is what you're seeing right here. And if you click that little waffle, that is one place where you can get to all three of them at once. So here's OneDrive, here is Teams, and here's SharePoint. If you have Teams on your computer, you can use that. But I'm going to show it from this web client. So if you click OneDrive, for instance, you'd open it up and I don't have any files here, but you can see if I had files here, this is the button I'm looking for right here. It's called Sync. And then if I go then and look at SharePoint, it looks pretty similar. I go to the site where my files live, which in this case is going to be this one. I can either find the sync button here, or I can go over here and I can find the sync button right there. Then if we're talking about Teams, you would go to Teams. Then if we were talking about Teams, what you would do is you would go to the file library in Teams, which is at the top of the team. You would click Sync there. Or you could open one of the point of view is really important about the sync. So if I click sync here, I'd be syncing everything here. If I open one of these folders and click sync, I'd only be syncing what's in that folder. And so that might be important for you. What I typically do when I work with enterprise clients is I recommend that they set up either a team in Teams, a channel in Teams, or a SharePoint site, and then they create a folder for each development workspace in their tenant. And then they can start stashing everything. It's in the same place. All the developers have access to the same place. I really love the approach of using a team because that also opens a chat, a posting channel for all of that so that they can get feedback on their work. When you click that sync button, you're going to get a message that that tells you that OneDrive, which is the software that actually creates the sync, is running. And you can go down in your tray, you'll notice, see all these little blue clouds I have down here in the lower right corner? Those are different OneDrives and SharePoint sites that I'm syncing. So you can sync more than one. And these actually are on different tenants because of the work that I do. Most people won't have that. But Then what ends up happening is over in File Explorer, which is what you're seeing on the screen, you'll see that I've got a bunch of, this little icon is the icon for SharePoint. This little icon is the icon for either OneDrive or a Teams library. And then underneath that, you see the files, the file setup that you have wherever the storage actually lives. So what happens when you do that sync is it actually creates a mirror of those files that live either out on SharePoint, OneDrive, or Teams SharePoint out on your hard drive, and that's the piece that you're looking at. This is really important. You always want to open your file from the synced location. And then when you save it, it'll save back to the synced location. And the magic is that this stuff down in the lower corner that's in your tray will automatically cause an update. So these right here are Power BI files that I clicked save on in Power BI Desktop, and it automatically launched an update that got sent to SharePoint. And so what I just showed you is clicking on the icon in the tray gives you that detail. I will tell you, some of these, if these files, sometimes Power BI files get enormous. And if you're talking about a really big Power BI file, the sync is not immediate. It takes a little bit of time to push all that data through the pipe that is that leads to the internet. So you sometimes need patience, but you can actually see a progress meter in this interface right here. So we just finished the first part of the sync from your computer to your file storage. Now we're going to talk about creating the sync from your file storage to the Power BI service. So you want to start with your workspace. And normally you would click Publish from Power BI Desktop, and that would push your information to the Power BI service. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to start in the Power BI service, and we're going to pull the information from the file storage. And it looks like this. You go to the workspace and you click Upload, and then you're going to either choose OneDrive for Business if your source is OneDrive. You're going to choose SharePoint if your source is either Teams document library or SharePoint. And when you do that, you'll see all of the libraries that you have access to over here, and I only have one. And when I click it, it looks just like it did in File Explorer, right? It's perfect. You navigate to the folder that you want, you pick up the file that you want. I picked up the wrong one. Let me pick up the right one. You pick up the one that you want, and then you just tell it upload. What happens in this process is you finish the loop. So now I'm synced seamlessly from Power BI Desktop all the way out to Power BI Service. This is another file that I've synced, and just to prove that all this is working, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up into this banner, and instead of being this beautiful teal color, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change it to red. And then I'm going to save the file. So this is a pretty small file in for a Power BI file. It's connected to a shared data set, so it's pretty thin. It doesn't take very long for it to upload to SharePoint. You do have to give it a little bit of hang time to move from SharePoint to the Power BI service, but eventually you can come over here and you can look at your report. This is the old report with the teal banner, and I just refresh that, and after the refresh, I should be able to see that red banner, just like that. So now let's talk a little bit about version history. If you go out to one of your Power BI files and click the ellipsis and then choose version history, you'll get a list of every version that you've ever saved on this particular file. I've done this 126 times on this file. So the first one in the list, or the last one that was saved, is the current version. And I know that because if I go here and click restore, SharePoint will tell me that. You can't restore this one because it's the current version. So I know that the one right before the current version is the one that's got that teal banner. And if I wanted to restore the teal banner, I would just come in here and I would just click restore. And it says I'm about to replace the current version with this last one. You tell it okay. It takes a quick minute to do that. And then you'll see I suddenly have 127 versions because it moved 125, it copied as number 127. And if I wait a little bit of time, when I go back into the service, I'll have that green bar restored. Another thing that I like to do is, because you can't really get to these comments very easily, or I just don't know how to do that, if there's somebody out there that knows how to get to these comments, please send me a note in the comments. I'd love to know how to do that. What I do is I create an Excel file that I'll keep in the same folder. And then whenever I've done a significant version of this file, I'll note the date and time stamp and put whatever significant changes I made in that version so that I have a marker, because otherwise you end up not knowing which one of these to restore when you need to restore something. One thing that you can do, however, is you can go in and you can click one of these, and what'll happen is it'll download, and you'll notice it downloads with a different name. And if I just click this and open it in Power BI Desktop, I'll be able to see what that file looks like before I restore it. And that's a pretty good practice if you don't know exactly which file you need to restore. The same functionality does exist in File Explorer. If you open File Explorer and you go to one of these, I'm going to go to one of these shared documents. If I go in here and look at one of these data sets, if I right click on it and go to the OneDrive functionality, there's a version history command there. And when you click that, you see it looks a little bit different, but you actually have the same thing. You have all those versions, and you'll notice there's an ellipsis there. And just like before, the first one is the current version. If I go to one earlier, it lets me either download it, delete it, or restore it. So same idea. And now finally, if I go back to Power BI Desktop and I open that report, I've given it enough time to replace that red banner with the green banner again. So it's all very seamless. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.